video, we're going to look at how to use some of the built-in functions in Access. And we're going to start with using some text functions. So let's say that I need to generate some logins for everybody in this table, and that logins will always be lowercase, and it will be the last name with the first initial concatenated. So I'm going to access this through my expression builder. I'm going to go to Field and right mouse click and go to Build and bring up my expression builder and start building my expression. So I'm coming to built-in functions here, and over here are my categories. I'm working with text. So some of the functions that are in the text are over here to the right. And if you got the time, you can click on these and you can see exactly what the function will be doing. It will be this one will be returning a string in a certain format. Okay, so you can click through and learn a little bit more about that. But there is a lowercase function, and the lowercase function is going to take a string and convert that whole string to lowercase. The way it works is you will have a function name and a parens, and inside the parens you have the argument that function needs to work with. In this case, it needs to work with a string, and a text field is a string. Okay, so this is what I want, this function. I will double click. When you bring that up in the expression builder, you will notice the argument string has two angle brackets. You will generate an error if you try to use this as your field expression. You must always replace this with a valid string to use this and not generate an error. So where's my valid string going to come from? Well, it's going to come from the participant table. And if I choose fields out of the participant table, it needs to be over here. You cannot choose, say, the caseworker table and not have it up here in the query design. Okay, so I'm going to do the last name, and I need to do string concatenation. So I'm going to come down to operators, and there's the string operator, and there's my string concatenation operator. And when I did this, it says, hey, wait a minute, you need a string expression here. So I'm going to come up, and what string expression do I need? I need the first initial. So back to functions, back to text, and you can grab a portion of a string. There's lots of ways. You can grab the left part of a string. You can grab the middle part of a string. You can actually grab the right part of the string. You can do a search and replace. Lots of functions. Takes time to learn them all. I want to grab the left part of a string. So now I've added another function nested in the lcase function, and this left function requires two arguments. The first is string. That first argument, where am I going to find that string at? Well, back to participants. That's the first name. And the length, how many characters do I want out of the first name? Just the first. So I am all done with building that expression, and there it is. It's in the field row, the expression I just built. Shift F2 will bring up what's called the zoom window if you need to work any more with it in a little bit wider box. And I'm going to change this to the left side of the colon to login. And I will run this, and you will see that I've generated some login IDs. Okay, now let's suppose the password is going to be, you know how they set the initial password maybe to your birthday? So let's take a look at some date time functions. Let's say the initial password is going to be the year you were born. So I'm going to come over here to functions, built-in functions, and select date time. And you will notice that you can always pull out a piece of a date, and this time I want to pull out the year. The year requires a date argument. And do I have a date argument? Yeah, I have a date argument in the participants table. See how you navigate through it? And then you'll see the date of birth right here. Okay, and I'll call that password, PW, let's say I call that. And this should pull out just the year if I run it. Oh, let's took the check marks out. And there are my passwords. Looks like we don't have data for every field here. So that's running some functions, using some built-in functions to build fields and expressions in your queries.